I got a new parts kit the other day I thought I'd show off. This is a Swedish K. It's a demilled parts kit. I thought I'd show you some design elements of this gun. I'm not all that familiar with the history of it, but I thought I'd just go ahead and show you how this gun's designed and some of its features. To start off with a brief overview, this was a 9mm submachine gun, blowback operated. Is created for the Swedish Army. As you can see, it's got a folding stock. Here's the bolt up here. It's got an end cap that comes off to take the bolt and the recoil spring out. It has a removable magwell that's usually held in by a clip that I'm missing. And it's got the barrel under a shroud up here. So I'm going to go ahead and scatter this all about and show you some of the individual parts. I thought I'd start with the end cap here since that's how you take the gun apart. It's made of 2 pieces. And these go together to engage these little cutouts on the gun. There's 3 of them positioned around. There was an earlier version of the Swedish K that was just a cap. It didn't have this hook and this little brace right here. When this goes in, this little brace locks into there. And that one locks into a lug up here. The earlier version had some issues occasionally with the lugs becoming damaged on a hot load or something and blowing the bolt and the rear end out of the gun at the operator. So these were added on the later versions of the Swedish K. But to assemble these 2 pieces, you slide this one into here, and then you rotate this until you see the pin right there. And then you can line it up and it rotates, and then when the spring puts pressure on this inner cap, it locks it into place so it can't spin off anymore. See if I can get a better view of what's happening in here. There we go. Okay, so this would be acting as if the spring was putting pressure on that rear inner cap. Let's see if I can push forward on it, and you'll see that pin become visible. That allows you to move it. And again, if I put, without blocking my view, pressure on the cap. Oh, did that wrong. I didn't have it turned in all the way. So if I turn it, see that goes up there. And because that spot of the inner ring is lower, sits out farther, prevents that little pin or lug from turning up into the open channel. So it's locked right there. You would press in, freeze up that pin, you're able to rotate it, and you can take that out of the back of the gun to service it. The recoil spring would come out, and then your bolt. Here's the recoil spring, just like a Sten, it's just a spring. Here's the bolt. The bolt goes in and out. You can use this to lock the bolt in the forward position. There's that. So when the bolt would be up here, you push that in and it would lock your bolt forward. If you wanted to charge the weapon, you would pull the pin out, rack it back, it would engage the sear, and then you could go ahead and fire the gun. So that would be if you want to carry the gun on an empty chamber. You would have the weapon unloaded, the bolt would be back, no magazine in, put the bolt forward, engage the pin, and then load your magazine. When you need to use the gun, you pull the pin out, pull it back, and it engages on the sear, and you just go ahead and fire. So the bolt has a flat milled in this top surface. I can assume that's probably to get the right weight, but it also has to clear some rivets up here for this upper lug. See if I can rotate it. Yep. You can kind of see them there, see how they protrude out. So that flat allows it to clear it. Lots of rivets in this gun. Spring goes onto there, holds it in place. There's where the searing gauge is. Here's the bolt face on the extractor. The extractor spring has a unique retaining clip there. See that V shape? The spring's kind of held in the middle of it. I haven't taken that apart yet, so I don't know. I'll have to see it closer later. I assume to take that out, you would use some pliers and pinch that V spring shaped clip, and then you can pull it out. Here's the ejector, which would be like, I haven't looked close enough for this one yet. I assume it goes like that. The bolt right up here is the ejector ramp, so it rides up on if it's a little off. So that's what ejects your case. Got a slight angle. Looks like it was held in by 3 pins. One of them broke off. Probably spot welded on each pin. Here's the whole ejector cut right there. A closer view at the other end where you can lock the bolt. Haven't taken that apart, but there is a screw in there that's staked. So I assume if you back that screw out, it'll let you pull this out. And there may be a, it's hard to tell, another clip on here, I don't know. So that's the bolt. Here's the rear half of the gun. Guess we'll start with the stock. It was just created with a piece of tubing bent there and there. It's got a hard rubber cheek piece. When it's in the open position, it's locked. To close it, you press on this lever, and it's still spring loaded to get past this detent, so you still got to give it kind of a whack or press hard. And it closes. When it's closed like this, it's not locked. Well, it does have some pressure, but you're able to easily flick it open. You'll watch the locks right there. Here's some more rivets. Lots of rivets on this gun. 3 right there, 2 right there, 1 right there, 1 big one up there, 2 tiny ones there. Okay, here's the wood grips. They're really basic. They're flat under there, so they're really simple grips. Screws, and then these unique nuts. You have to use like a split screwdriver to take those out. So this rear stock assembly is riveted onto this milled chunk of metal right here. That milled chunk of metal is riveted to this piece down here. So those are the rivets that hold it in. If you look at the overall construction of the gun, it's a stamped piece. This isn't an actual tube, it's stamped so you can see it starts, let's see, where's the best view here. You can imagine if that was complete. You got this bend, goes around here, here, loops over, goes back and there. So it's a pretty simple construction, but that's hard to replicate. So if you see people building post samples or semi-autos, they just replicate this with a separate rail welded onto a tube. There's the rest of that. See that steel block? That would be the stock mounting block that it's riveted to right here. This is a longer rivet that holds on this release lever for the stock. That just acts like a spring. Trying to get that on camera. There we go. So this spring, aside from that detent there, this spring holds this flat. These right here are special rivets for the fire control group. These are kind of like washers, I assume. And on the other side, it's more of a standard rivet. So when they would assemble that, they would put the rivet through, put the washer on, and then hammer that down. And it holds together. Here's another steel block right here. Acts as a spacer. I had to stop and change my camera battery. But anyways, this steel block acts as a spacer. And now that I look at it, this is the mating piece. Go like this. It's a ramp. So I'm guessing any dirt that gets caught in here, this is ramped. So we would go down here and there'd be an open space where the dirt would come out. Not really sure. I'd have to look at a complete gun to tell, but I'm guessing that's what that's for. You can see how that looked like it was cut out down there. So it would be open. So there's the rivets that hold that block in. So you can see the fire control group in there. You can see it nice because that's the one good thing about this gun being destroyed is it gives you a nice cross section or kind of view. So this is the select fire of this gun. Most of the early, or I think all the early ones were full auto only. So that's R for repeating and A for automatic, or whatever they would use in that country as far as terms go. So for automatic, it's pretty basic. See this is part of the trigger right here. Pull down, pulls down the sear. So your bolt's here, that engages, pull down, bolt keeps going, firing until you let go or you run out of ammo. The semi-auto mode on this gun is kind of unique. Switch it to R for repeating probably. This confused me when I first came upon it, so I squeeze the trigger now and nothing happens. But when the bolt would be in the gun here, the spring would be pushing forward on the bolt, which in turn would be pushing forward on the sear. And now what happens is you can see the trigger engaged, and it pulls the sear down. So it pulls it down and then releases. So that would be semi-auto. I would guess, without having it apart, that this sear here has an elongated slot on it and a spring pushing it forward. In a way, it kind of operates like an Uzi in semi-auto. See, so the rest of it, how about the trigger guard? It's probably spot welded onto the rest of the housing. There's an actual weld bead down there. Comes up here. Since it's chopped up, you can't see where there would be a J-hook safety up here where you would pull the bolt back and you could push it up and stop right there. So that would be another safety. Kind of like the Sten, but I guess they weren't fond of those because if you dropped them on the buttstock, it could come out. And then if the trigger was pulled down at the same time by inertia or something in the trigger guard, it could fly forward and fire around. So I think it about covers the rear half of the gun here. So working my way forward here. Showed you this piece just earlier. It would have been right there on the gun. This is the magazine release. To release the magazine, you go like that. It's got these wings to protect the lever so you don't accidentally release your magazine. This is just another milled steel block. this right here, see it's shiny, that wasn't actually cut. This is where the back of the magazine rides. See how it goes in like that? It makes it easier to insert the magazine. So when the magazine goes in, here, clip. And then to release it, go like that, pull out. So I guess you would call that the rear magazine guide. This gap right here is kind of critical. It keeps the magazine from wobbling back and forth. And when I got it locked in there, there's almost no wobble. It's really tight. It's a nice manufacturing there. So then, on the opposite end, on these magazines, there's a forward guide, which is this little raised section right here and here. And it goes up through this slot. So that's what guides that. And to keep it from going up too far, this is what limits it. This would hit right about there. Right there to there. On the Magwell, this gun has a removable Magwell, so it can take coffin magazines, which is a wider version of this magazine. I think they're quadruple stack if I remember right. It's kind of like putting two double feed magazines together. I've never really looked at them close, but... So let's piece this together here. Well, we don't need this half, but... There's one hole, one hole. There goes the other one. And the part I'm missing is like a C-shaped clip, just made out of some steel wire that would go through here and hold that magwell in place. So if you want to use your coffin magazine on the gun, you would pull that clip out and drop the magwell out. And because the coffin magazine's wider, you now have a big open gap for that fat, wide magazine to stick in. I've seen some people modify their full autos to take drum magazines. You would pull this out, and I guess to get the drum magazine to fit in there, because it's not really meant to take it, but it has the same dimensions here. It has this same piece on the back of the drum. It doesn't have this on the forward of the drum, but it's just a large flat surface on the front of the drum. So you put the drum up there, but to modify them, you'd have to file off some of this metal here to get it to take your drum. Okay, moving on to the forward half of the gun. This is the trunnion, the barrel shroud, and the barrels in there, the barrel nut. Here's a sling swivel, which I forgot to show you on the back half of the gun. Sling swivels. Those are just kind of like rivets. They're pressed in there and hammered on the other side. You can see the mushroomed metal there. So this is the chamber end. There's those guides the magazine goes up into. There you can see the feed ramp right here. That's actually a machine part of the trunnion. There's the extractor cut out right there. And you can see there is a slight additional feed ramp chamfered into the barrel there. See that hole right there? That would be where your ejector goes. See how it was ground off in the D-mill? So this is the forward spacer block. These guide rails extend all the way to the front. So this block here is thinner than the other ones. more rivets. Here's a pin right here. That pin is for the what do you call it, collar or barrel nut here. Kind of works like an Uzi. It's spring loaded. It's got those little ratchet teeth. So to remove this, you would press down on here. Spring loaded. And then you could loosen this up here. The Trunnion has two plug welds. One right here. And they did a better job on this side hiding it. So there'd be another plug, like slot weld there. They'd put the Trunnion in when they assemble it and then just run their bead. Made in Sweden. So I'm going to go ahead and take the barrel shroud off here. Okay, that was a two-handed operation to push that little plunger down. So I got it clear now, so I can take the nut off or loosen it up. So that comes off, and you can pull the barrel out. Here's the barrel. It's got an index notch right here. The index notch lines up with the pin in there. It needs to be indexed because of the extractor slot and the little feed ramp there. Whereas on the Sten gun, on the Mark II Sten, it doesn't have to be indexed because there is no extractor slot. So when you put that in there, it's just indexed. Here's an index up here for the actual barrel shroud that goes right there. And that has to be indexed because of your front sight. You don't want that rotating. So this, whatever barrel nut or whatever you call it, is actually trapped on here. Must be put on there early in the assembly process before this front sight is spot welded on. The front sight is kind of like an Uzi sight. How you can adjust windage by rotating it. And you can also adjust your factory elevation there too. It's got a spring piece of metal and little splines, or I don't know what you call those, ridges that keep it from spinning out. And there's a special tool that goes into those two little holes there, and you can adjust it. So there's your sight picture. Got holes for cooling. Not sure how they made it, but it's a pretty elaborate piece here. Not sure if they used a piece of pipe and welded it onto a machine piece right here. But you can see this is pretty elaborate right here in this section. And that's just spot welded on. You can see the spot weld dimples, two right there and two right there. So I'm going to put this back together now. The barrel's already indexed. Index the barrel shroud, spin it. And I've read on some Swedish K videos, all the veterans that actually use these guns said you shouldn't hear any clicks when you shouldn't hear more than a couple clicks, 2 or 3 clicks, because that you'll wear out the ratchet. So I tighten as good as I can, and then I'll snug it. 3 clicks. Because if you were to just ratchet that down, it would be clicking like crazy, and you'd be wearing away your little ratchet teeth there and your plunger, and then your barrel could loosen up on you in combat. So that's the front of the gun. Only thing I haven't covered yet is the rear sight. And without knowing much about this gun, I don't know what the 3 settings are for, but this is actually a 3-bladed rear sight. 1, 2, 3. I assume for 100, 200, and 300 meters. So 1, 2, 3. Trying to mock up a sight picture there. That's pretty unique, having 3 elevation settings on the rear sight. Piece of spring steel goes around there and around there. So to assemble this piece, you'd probably, or disassemble, you'd probably punch out that pin, lift this out, and then you could pull out your spring. It's a flat spring, sheet metal. So I think that about covers it. I guess I didn't cover the magazine. Here's the 36 round magazine. It's a double stack. It's a nice magazine how it focuses it or narrows the rounds to the front, as opposed to like a box shaped magazine where the rounds would just face forward. This kind of feeds them more towards the center. Well, that pretty much covers it. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.